Crystal Washington is a technology futurist who's here to help you prepare for the next decade of tech advancements. She's here to share her practical know-how to help give you an edge this holiday season. Over to you, Crystal.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Kimberly. I hope you all are ready. I'm so excited. I've been watching chat. I see that you're joining from all over the world. And so in this particular session, we're going to talk about the future is now, technology and trends that revolutionize. So I hope you're ready. Keep in mind that we are going to do some questions and answers at the end of this session. So if questions pop up as I go along, please go to the questions tab, not the chat tab, and type in your questions there, and your question may be one of the ones chosen. So let's go ahead and get started. So today, our journey is going to be taken in 3 parts. First, we're going to look at what you need to know about people, because we know that your clients, even your team members, are driving the future of how we market in our businesses. And it doesn't matter if we are part of mid-sized companies, if we're retail, if we're nonprofits. At the end of the day, we are driven towards our clients, our customers, and our donors, right? Next part is we're going to look at some of the trends that you need to be aware of, because we want you to get ahead of those. But not just the trends themselves, but where are some of the very unique opportunities that you can take advantage of right now to get ahead of the curve. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's look at the people. One of the things that you've probably noticed is that humans have become increasingly attached to technology. Now, this was already happening pre-COVID. But since COVID, we noticed even those Luddites that were kind of bah humbug. I don't want to use apps. I don't want to use all these different things. All of a sudden, people all over the world are ordering via delivery apps. They're getting more into some of the different ways that marketers are marketing to them via highly customized emails and websites. And so with that having been said, we're becoming more attached than ever before. So the other thing that comes with that, though, it's not just a matter of becoming attached to the technology. Some of us had children that were in virtual school during the pandemic. Some of us basically run our businesses from our phones that are in our pockets. But with all this change that has been going on, there also comes something else with it that shifted the way that humans interact. So we're going to play a little game right now. And guess what? You're on a team with every single person around the world right now who is with us today. So we're going to play this in 3 rounds. It's going to be super simple. In each round, you're going to choose between 2 things, A and B. I want you to choose the item that is good. I want you to choose the item that is harmless. Very simple. So what's going to happen is a poll will pop up after I present the items to you, and you're going to have just 25 seconds to select if you're going to choose A or B. So are you feeling confident? Go ahead and put in chat if you're feeling confident right now. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of chat responses. People are feeling good about this. Okay, that sounds good. Hopefully, you're ready to be accurate, because these are life or death decisions. Let's go ahead and get started with round 1. You are hungry. Which one of these do you eat? Do you eat A or do you eat B? You only have 25 seconds to decide. Let's go. Okay, time is up. We had to choose between A and B. Now it's time for us to reveal the results to see what percentage of you chose which option, and then figure out how your choice was. So we're going to go ahead and get these results up on the screen right now to see exactly how you chose. You ready? All right. So from what I can see, it looks like 89% of you chose A. 89% of you chose A. So apparently A's looking mighty juicy. And it looks like the other 11% of you chose B. 11% of you chose B. All right, so A, the 89%, you chose grapes. Congratulations, you made a great choice. The other 11% of you chose B, moonseed. Congratulations, you're dead. All right, so already we knocked out 10%, over 10%, 11% of the strongest marketers in the world. A little scary, but don't worry, there is a chance for redemption. Let's go into round 2. You're no longer hungry, or at least I hope not. This would be kind of awkward if you were. You want a pet, and your pet's name is Fluffy. Is your Fluffy A, and you must choose a Fluffy, or is your Fluffy B? Go ahead and go into chat right now, or into the poll right now. You have 25 seconds. Okay, so time is up. We're going to see which one of you, or what percentage of us chose A versus which percentage of us chose B. Now, this is probably kind of a hard one for you. Like in chat, there were some comments about, oh no, not snakes, or some people said neither one. Funny, we had to choose. But we are going to see the percentages to see exactly how we fell on this one. Hopefully we did as well on this one as we did on the last, because at least 89% of us can go to the grocery store with some level of confidence and pick out our grapes. But let's go ahead and see what the percentages were on these snakes here. And I don't know if any of these are local to you, because we have people from all over the world, but we want to make sure that we get these right, because you could run into them in nature, right? All right, so the results are in right now, and it looks like for A, we have about 46% for A, and it looks like we have 46% for A. Is that 56% for B? All right, so more for B than A. A was the scarlet king snake, and B was the coral snake. Now, scarlet king snake is a popular type of pet snake. Meanwhile, coral snake, deadly. So for those of you, the majority of you who chose coral snake, unfortunately, you are dead. Hopefully not too many of you are in the 11% from earlier and the latter that chose the coral snake this time, but if you are, we have one more chance for redemption. You ready? Let's get it going. Last round, you're no longer hungry, and you're not necessarily looking for a pet, but you are going to bring one of these two items home. I want you to bring home the item that is harmless. Are you ready? Are you going to choose A, or are you going to choose B? 25 seconds to decide. All right, time is up. Let's go ahead and get the results of this one. All right, so which one are you bringing home? Are you bringing home A, or are you bringing home B? Now, this is kind of interesting because when I was looking at some of the results, I was wondering if some of you were actually choosing not A when it came time to get these results in, all right? So some of you might even have A. You might have different opinions on if this one is actually dangerous or not. A very select few of you might be familiar with B, but it looks like in this round, 61% chose the baby, which is A, and 39% chose B, the axolotl. Now, many of you are probably wondering at this point, what do I do with this information? I got you. So I may know a little bit about axolotls because I may have been trying to convince my husband to let me have one. Here's what I know about axolotls. They're small little creatures, cute as a button, that are found in a select area of Mexico. They're amphibians, and in person, they kind of look like smiling babies. But here's what I know about an axolotl. An axolotl can scratch you, and they won't hurt you. An axolotl can bite you, and it won't hurt you. Now, I don't know why you would do this, but you could bite the axolotl. It can't hurt you. But let's let's talk about that baby. I don't know if you've ever owned one of those, but just what it does to you financially should have let you know that that is not the harmless option. So this round goes to B axolotl. So looking at this, it looks like overall, if we wanted to look and see, if we summarize all of these different rounds that we did, if the question is how did you do as a group of brilliant marketers from around the world, honestly, not that great, but that's okay. We actually played this game to demonstrate something in terms of what's happening to people. I want you to notice how the smallest change in a thing made the difference between life and death. The smallest change in characteristics made the difference between something being harmless and something being deadly. Understand that the only reason that any of us are here right now interacting is because our ancestors' brains evolved to recognize change as danger. And guess what? Our amygdalas to this day still react that way to change unless we train ourselves otherwise. And so that's why there have been times, maybe it's with your team, maybe it's with your customers, you have recommended something that you know would make their lives better and easier, and at some point you got your head bitten off. Maybe even it happened at home, and you were wondering, why is this happening? Don't take it personal. Their brains are telling them that you're trying to feed the moon seed. And so we have to make sure that we are practicing grace and patience as we're introducing these new technologies, because we're going to have people on our team that, even though we know that the revenue intelligence is a brilliant item that's now in beta available to you, right? We know what it can actually do for us. There's still going to be some people that say, you know what? I don't want to do promotions based on data. I've been running this business off of my guts for years. And some of you might have upper management or C-suite people that do that to you, right? And so we have to understand and be patient, explain the logic, because people are having biological responses to changes. That's the number one reason we played this game. The number two reason was to showcase the fact that at least 11% of us have no business picking out our own produce. Let's keep going forward, okay? Let's talk about some of the trends that you should be aware of. We're going to go into some additional trends in a moment, but the top three I think you should be aware of is, number one, AI predictive analytics is changing the way organizations market. I'm not going to go too deep into that because you saw revenue intelligence earlier, and so you understand how that can change the game, because in the past we went off of just kind of our memories, some patterns, and then let's be honest, owners and upper management, what they felt was right in their gut. But we know that gut reactions are not always the way to go. And why would we do that when we have this incredible technology that can give us insights into the best time to message our people, to send that SMS, to send those emails, the best ways to get in front of them in the ways that they're wanting to be contacted. Number two, accelerated mobile pages and dynamic content personalization for email. So we're talking about accelerated mobile pages, and there's other technologies that are similar. People are wanting access to mobile scrolling and visiting sites on mobile where it loads fast and it's easy to get around. It's becoming more and more of a demand globally because people are doing more from their mobile devices than they have ever before. And then we talk about dynamic content personalization for email. Well, now when we're sending emails using this type of technology, we're able to send email that not only has personalized content. You know, we remember years ago when we were first able to put in someone's first name or a little bit of data about them, we felt very special, except those times when we kind of messed up and didn't load it right, and it would come across with the carrots and it didn't actually have their names in it. And we're like, ah. Well, now we can go much further. We can insert information that has to do with their browsing history, with the interest they've showed in the past, with their past purchases, and even up-to-the-date information on weather or other things that are coming through email dynamically. So we're starting to see a shift in how emails are received because people are requiring more hyper-personalization. We all want to feel like special little butterflies. And then number three, your target market is reaching content saturation. Years ago, the conversation was people need more content, give them more. Well, now, I don't know if you've noticed, I bet you don't need more content. It's very hard, if not impossible, for you to keep up with the top blogs and the top podcasts and all the conventions and other things that you need to stay abreast of emerging technologies. There's too much content. There's too much long-form content. And so now that we understand that our clients, our customers, our donors, whoever it is we're trying to reach, they are all overwhelmed with information. And so now what they appreciate is simplification. TLDR, too long, didn't read. And so we need to have summaries of what we're talking about. Instead of having extremely long emails, how about we shorten it and get to the point? Or at least make a simpler version at top, and then we can go into more detail below. But people want someone who can summarize the information they need. I'm willing to bet you're more likely right now to read information from sources that provide a 4 or 5 sentence summary of information, and maybe they give links to emails, or not emails, but websites or articles, versus the ones that are posting long articles. And so if you can come across as an expert in whatever industry that you're representing, whatever retail, where you're giving them summarized information and maybe links to more information if they want it later that's yours or someone else's, because there's so many different businesses represented here, that's the way to go. It's not about more information, it's about easier to digest information. Video and short form, that's where we're going. So let's talk about generative AI, because when we think about AI, right now, much of the drive behind it, people are talking about generative. But before we even get to that, we do have to talk about what artificial intelligence is itself, because there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of confusion about it. I find that people tend to operate on a scale where on one end you have people that believe it's about to bring about the new world utopia, and on the other hand, people think that robots are going to come and kill us all and take our jobs, right? And you all are smart marketers. You've been in business for a while. You know how things run. You know that the truth is actually somewhat in between. All artificial intelligence is it's a branch of computer science that creates machines capable of performing tasks that used to be performed by humans. The term artificial intelligence was coined in the 1950s. This is not new. Do you remember those calculators that we had in the 70s, whether you were born in the 70s or not? The very simple ones, not the TI whatevers that were fancy, but the very simple calculators. By definition, that's artificial intelligence. So you have been working with artificial intelligence no matter what age you're at for most of your life. Now, the reason we're hearing so much talk about it now is because of generative artificial intelligence. And this is a branch of artificial intelligence that basically leverages computer science and machine learning to create technology that can basically do the things that humans used to do, like artificial intelligence, but it also does more creative things. And so if you think about writing poems or summarizing content or creating video, all these things that used to be the domain of humans now has moved with machines as well. And obviously, analytical artificial intelligence is extremely important, which kind of branches in between these, because that's how we're using data to make smarter decisions. So let's give an example of AI that I think you should be aware of and just how practical it can be. So there's an organization called LawGeeks, which invented an artificial intelligence system, and they're kind of trying to replace lawyers. Like they don't say that, but we know what's going on, people. And so they created this LawGeeks AI, and they wanted to see how it compete with top attorneys. And so they designed this test, if you will, where they had attorneys, leading attorneys, and their LawGeeks AI actually spot check 5 NDAs for issues, reasons you wouldn't want to sign it, right? And what they found in the end was LawGeeks AI performed 9% better than the average lawyer at a 94% accuracy rate. And for me, that's interesting, right? But what's even more fascinating is the fact that it took those lawyers on average 92 minutes, while it took LawGeeks AI 26 seconds to be 9% more accurate. This is the power of AI. And when it comes to analyzing large amounts of information, it can just do things that humans cannot. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's pretty incredible. Now, this is an example of a technology. I don't use it, but I just want you to be aware of the possibilities. This is called Tome. Tome is a type of technology that allows you to create all kinds of presentations or articles or slideshows, things like that. And so what you'll notice is at the bottom, I write in here, I asked Tome to create a presentation sharing how you can use NFTs to build wealth. I'm intentionally asking it to build something that many people don't know about, just to show you what's possible. Now, this is happening. This is exactly how fast this actually happens. Notice how the outline is being produced on the left-hand side. It's filling it in with the information as well. Now you're noticing that pictures are starting to pop up as well. These pictures do not live anywhere else on the internet. They have not been created for anything else. They were created on the spot to match the content in this presentation. I want you to notice how fast an entire presentation or a mini book or anything else can be created using this type of technology. Now in chat, I'm curious, go ahead and type in there, how do you feel about this? How do you feel seeing this type of technology? So I'm already seeing we're getting mixed responses. Some people are saying this is kind of cool, others are saying this is horrible. And I actually agree that it's both. I'm not sharing this with you to say that we should actually replace human ingenuity using this type of technology. Because an organization or individual that uses this, they don't necessarily know what they're talking about. They're relying on this technology, and if they ever question on the information, if they haven't fact-checked it, as we'll talk about in a moment, because the technology isn't perfect, they'll get into trouble. But I want to show you the possibilities of what can be created. Now, this just happens to be my very favorite internet meme around generative AI. And it says, everyone, AI art will make designers obsolete, AI accepting the job. Now, generative AI is getting a little bit better, but I don't know if you've ever seen AI-generated art. But one of the things that it tends to have the hardest time with when it comes to humans is hands. If any of you joining us right now are artists, you would probably agree that one of the most difficult parts to draw in the human anatomy is hands. So that's actually one of the few things about generative AI that makes me feel it's almost human-like, because I'm like, oh, you struggle with this too, it's hard. But it's funny because I'd be curious to know. So I'm active on Facebook, and I have a Facebook friend who's a liar. Does anyone else have Facebook friends that lie? I do. And so to kind of show you how this all works, it's hilarious. So I have this one Facebook friend, and this is a true story, that has completely reinvented himself as an architect. And so every 2 to 3 weeks, he'll put up these pictures that I know are AI generated of these buildings that he's building all over the world. And every time he posts this, at least 50 of his friends talk about, oh, that's amazing, that's incredible, I love your life. And I don't know about you, when you see super ridiculous things online, I don't usually comment because I don't feel the need. I just chuckle because I'm like, ooh, humanity might be just slightly doomed, right? But as I'm chuckling watching this and people are like, this is amazing because they can't tell the difference yet, he also does this thing for every site. Like if he has a building in Chile, he'll then later on post a picture of him huddled up with a bunch of supposed like supermodel types, and people are again come in there and comment, oh, you're living the life, this is amazing. All anyone has to do is zoom in on these girls' hands. They're monsters. Some of them have 7 fingers. I saw one with like a saxophone mouthpiece for a thumb. It gets super weird. I'm sharing this to say that generative AI is not perfect. It's very much like that friend that you have that's super smart and that has a lot of the answers, but when they don't have the answer, they just make something up that sounds smart. Generative AI will plug in things when it doesn't quite understand the pattern. That's why we are not in any kind of danger of generative AI taking over and wholly replacing people just yet, because you need human oversight. You have to make sure that when it's writing articles, it's not popping in actually factually incorrect information. There's a lawyer that got into trouble in New York because he used ChatGPT to create a motion. That motion referenced a case that didn't exist. Now he's in trouble of being disbarred. This is the world we live in. So I'm sharing with you the tools. And it's incredible that as a marketer, you can use these, but we always have to have human oversight because it's imperfect. And so we don't want to use it to replace people on our marketing team or different functions, but it's a tool that we can use and leverage to be better. I don't know if you've been following OpenAI. There's many different generative AI companies. OpenAI is the one that really brought a lot of generative AI to the public's attention. It had been in development for a while before before OpenAI got a hold of it, but OpenAI is the one who released ChatGPT, okay? Well, they recently released Sora, which is their video answer to ChatGPT. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they didn't release it until after the actors and writers strike in the US was over, because I'm pretty sure they would have had some problems. But as a marketer, I'm sure that you've played around with different types of generative AI. On Sora, someone typed in this prompt that we're seeing right here. And this is what was created. I want you to notice that these buildings are not real. This dog is not real. All of this was created on the spot as a result of the prompts that were put into Sora. So this generative AI technology is extremely powerful. And I know that Intuit Mailchimp has a lot of partnerships with organizations so that you can leverage more of this technology even within your marketing. But we do have to be aware of some of the potential downfalls or challenges with it. I had the pleasure last year, almost a year to this date, of keynoting at a conference for the top IP professionals in Latin America, which was pretty amazing because I can't speak Portuguese and even my Spanish is no muy bien. Pero this here is Elis Regina. And so we used her as an example in the presentation because in Brazil, where the conference is being held, she's pretty much their answer to America's Elvis, okay? So she's a beloved, beloved character. Many of your countries, we have that one or two artists that are just known and are huge and they're beloved to us. And what happened was Volkswagen actually got permission from her estate and used AI to create a commercial where she's singing and she's driving one of their cars. Now, she passed away many, many years ago. And what was interesting is that about half of Brazilians, when they saw that commercial, had an extremely positive reaction. They were excited. They had all this nostalgia. They were like, oh my gosh, they brought our beloved Elis Regina back. The other half experienced rage. They hated it. And part of it is because we live in a world right now where we're playing the game as the rules are being written regarding AI. In terms of who owns things, do we have some type of ownership for the people whose data was used to train them? But not only that, we're seeing through multiple studies that there are a certain sect of humans, about a third on average, who have a foundational belief that creativity is the domain of humans. And whenever they see something that's been created by generative AI, they naturally have an extremely strong negative reaction. So if they can detect that something was not made by a human, a piece of art, they can detect that it's AI generated, they naturally have an aversion from it. And it's not even something that they necessarily think about. You might even know some of those people. I'm not here to say this is good or bad. I'm here to share with you what is, right? But as you're using generative AI in your marketing pieces, keep this in mind because you have to understand who your audience is and if they belong to that 30% or if a portion of them do. And that's going to vary depending on the type of organization that you're with. So we've talked about some of the trends. We understand analytical generative AI. We understand what generative AI is. We also understand the top 3 trends that I gave you that you should be aware of going forward. But what are some of the unique opportunities that you have right now? One of my suggestions to you is to use generative AI to remove points of friction. So this isn't one of those things where you want to start thinking, oh my gosh, there's all these new technologies available around AI. I want to just start plugging it in everywhere and playing with it. A lot of people do that, and what happens is we waste money that way. We want to stop and think about what are the points of friction we're already having. Are there positions that are being unfulfilled within our organizations, and so we have to make up the difference? So do we need it to help us generate content in terms of wording? Do we need it to help maybe a little bit more in terms of analytics so that we can figure out how we need to plan out our holiday programs and campaigns? What are our points of friction right now? For you to answer that question, guess what you have to do? You have to get with your team. You have to get everyone together and just start talking about what are some of the challenges we're having in this department? What are some of the biggest problems that we're seeing right now? I think when it comes to seeing what's happening in the future, oftentimes what happens is people think that the future just lands on us, but it does not. It actually gives us little Easter eggs. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to think about a company, and I'm going to use this in a way different than what most people do. I want you to think about like a Blockbuster, okay? And people think that the future just landed on Blockbuster, but it didn't. Blockbuster actually had a chance to buy Netflix, as you might know, and they backed out of that agreement. Why did they do that? Because in the end, Blockbuster, who had no competitor anywhere near its size, said, okay, Netflix, this whole little mailing DVDs to people thing that you're doing, this is cute. And this streaming thing that you're saying will be possible in the future, we don't know if we believe that that's going to be a thing. But we're Blockbuster. We know what people want. That's why we're at the top of our game, at the top of the hill. People want to have to get up off the couch and put on clothes and drive to a store, go to the shelf, hope that it has the video that they're looking for, get home, watch it, forget to return it and pay a late fee. That's what people want because we're Blockbuster and we know. No. All that Blockbuster had to do, if they wanted to have some great data to help them in making a decision, is survey their cashiers. If they said, cashiers, globally, cashiers, what are the biggest problems you're seeing? Over and over again, cashiers would have said, every day people come in here mad because they came all the way here and their video's not available, or they're having to pay these late fees. If Blockbuster had used that data from their frontline people, they would have made a very different decision. Now, Blockbuster also, not only did they not do that, but they didn't have access to analytical data or sentiment data where they could have taken all this feedback from cashiers, parsed it for keywords, and then figured out what solutions they should have looked for. They definitely would have made a different decision. And I think taxi companies all over the globe are in the same position. Who had more data than taxi companies to make smart decisions about the future? But if they had just asked the people that, when people call in, they're talking to the folks that they're putting out the vehicles, if they had just asked their people, hey, what are the biggest challenges that you're hearing? Those folks would have told them, hey, people keep calling saying, where's my taxi? Or I can't get a taxi in a certain neighborhood. Same issue all over the globe. Those dispatchers would have given them the same data, and they would have made different decisions. But instead, they're having their lunches eaten by companies that really don't even own vehicles, many of them. And so now they're playing catch up. And there's no shame in it because sometimes we have to catch up, that's okay. But using data from our teams, especially our frontline people, not just marketers, but getting that data from other people in our teams can reveal some of the friction points that'll help us know how we can start to leverage technology to fill in those gaps. So my suggestion to you would be to get with your team, but not just your team, survey people in other parts of the organization and see what challenges they're seeing. So for instance, when I go into organizations and I do consulting, like I did a consulting project for a very large hospitality company, I said, I need everybody in the room as we survey on some information. I want to understand the challenges that you're having. I don't just want management in here. I want the front desk agents. I want housekeeping. I want the shoe shine guy. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, I'm dead serious. Bring Joe in here. I just met him. Because everyone's going to have a different viewpoint on what challenges exist that they need help with. And then once you identify those points of friction, then you see if there's technology that can help you. And in this case, generative AI. But we don't just want to adopt something because it's new and it's fresh, because that's how we waste time, money, and resources. And we live in a global economy where no one has those things to waste, right? So where should you be ideally going forward? So if I were to just wave a magic wand and say in the next 6 or so months, where should you be? These are the things I would suggest that you use AI for, okay? And you get to make the best decision for you. One, in terms of guidelines, I would suggest you develop a basic policy or guidelines for generative AI within your organization. And it can be a bullet list. This doesn't have to be a comprehensive, very long project, but you do this by first starting off understanding what are you using the technology for? Are we using it to analyze data? Are we using it to create marketing pieces? Are we using it in other departments when it comes to scheduling or traffic management? There's so many ways it's starting to be used. Once you understand what the purpose is, then you can start to put the rails on there, because we want to make sure that we also protect ourselves, because if we accidentally upload the wrong information to a public-facing AI machine, that could be problematic, right? We could start looking at some lawsuits. So number one, develop some guidelines. That's something that you could probably do over the next week or two if you haven't already done that. Number two, think about if it makes sense for you to have a chatbot or digital assistant. So leveraging generative AI can save you time and resources. There are certain things that you have people that come to your site, whether you're B2B or B2C, or even in the nonprofit space, there's certain questions that people have over and over and over again. If you're a university, there's forms that your students have to fill out, right? And you're always having to explain, oh, this is how you do this. People are calling in, they want information. It's wasting valuable hours at your organization. So think about using a chatbot or a digital assistant where you're uploading all of your best answers, all of your data, and that way they're getting information based on your knowledge panel. So not just things open to the public, but we're putting in your knowledge panel. Also understand, though, a chatbot is only as good as the data that it's trained on. So if you don't have really great comprehensive data, the answers that people get aren't going to be that great. Number three, content personalization. Now, I have a feeling you're global marketers, this is probably one of the things that you're really good at. So think about leveraging generative AI to create personalized content, recommendations, and hit specific pain points for your target market. And so that could be on websites where it's recommending things based on where they've been on the web, based on some of their past purchases, or it can be, in addition to that, personalizing emails, as we talked about earlier. But how do you make this content dynamic? How do you make it appeal to people when they're already oversaturated with content? Storytelling is great, it's still wonderful, but we have to bring it home and make it touch the people that are actually reading it, because you're competing not just with your competitors, but with every other email, with every other piece of physical mail, with every other text message they're receiving. Time is harder to get a hold of when it comes to our target audience, so we have to make sure that we're using it for personalization, but we also want to make sure that we have a human that's overseeing this project, because again, we know that if you're using generative AI, it's not foolproof. It will actually put in incorrect information if we're not careful. And then lastly, for strategic planning, bring your data to life by using predictive analytics to get the most out of customer interactions and even discover perfect touch points. And this is one of the things when we think about the revenue analytics, where we can actually think about how can we shift things in the future. And I'm going to share something with you, and I just need you to lean in for a minute, because we're going to have a moment of truth. I hope it's okay with you that we have a moment of truth. This is the piece that's going to be hardest with your leadership if you are not one of the leaders at your organization. And the reason why is, again, oftentimes leaders feel like they know what should be done, but really the numbers and using analytics to make smart decisions is the best way to make decisions going forward that are more likely to increase revenue, that are more likely to increase your customer or client base, that are more likely to get you results. And so you might have to sell them on this point, because as you bring this to them, they might be thinking moonseed, because they will see it as competition. Those that don't think in an analytical fashion, those that aren't used to crunching numbers. But at the end of the day, this is really where you want to make sure that you're going. So what are your next steps at this point? We kind of, we did a level set of where we want you to be over the next 6 months. But what should you walk away doing today? Because at the end of the day, if you're like me, I listen to a lot of great content and I get excited, but I need actionable steps, right? Number one, create a task force. And that task force should represent people from not just different parts of marketing within your organization, but also different parts of the organization, because they're going to have input about different things, and we want to make sure that we're not operating in silos. Now, I say this understanding that some of you are a one-person operation, some of you may have 50 employees, others of you might have a few hundred. So this is going to look different for everybody. You're intelligent. I invite you to do this the way you know how, but we need to have people representing different areas of the company as we put this task force together. Number two, create those AI guidelines that we talked about. And again, they can be bullet points. That's okay. It's not a problem. We don't have to have these long, incredible, wordy documents, right? And maybe legal will try to turn it into that later. That's fine. But just start off with the bullet points for now. At the end of the day, what we want to do, this technology is moving so fast. We don't have time for perfect solutions. This is true in marketing in general. We're testing and we're editing. We're testing, we're learning, we're editing. We're doing a little bit more, right? And so creating a bulletproof guideline that you can then go and you can edit over time. You can make changes to it, but we need a document to get you started. And if I can share a little secret with you, because I'm a speaker, I speak all over the globe to organizations of all different sizes and kinds. Some of the largest Fortune 100 organizations in the world don't have their guidelines together yet, or just have bullet points, because it's changing so fast. So I don't want you to feel the pressure to do things perfect. We just want to do it. Number one, brainstorm those pain points we talked about within that task force. What are the problems you're having, not just in marketing, but all over the company, right? Because it might be a matter of, there might be something that the technology stack that you're using within marketing might address some of the other factors as well. I know a lot of organizations that I speak to, sales and marketing operate in silos, and operations, which is incredible because the three are so interdependent upon each other. And so in brainstorming these pain points, you want to make sure that you have people representing those kinds of departments that maybe they're not the best at communicating. That's a culture thing you can work on. I'm not the person to help you with that. But you know that they need to be a part of the solution. So bring them in too, make them feel welcome. And then research Gen A solutions to those pain points. And it's not just generative AI, technology solutions, period. You want to hit those pain points specifically. You don't just want to adopt the newest shiny technology because it's popular. And then lastly, implement and regularly evaluate results. And the other piece to this is I want you to evolve. I want you to evolve. It's going to change. We're living in a very agile world. Some of you might even be tired of the word agile, but that's where we're at. You know, we think about the 1980s when you got a piece of technology, it was what it was, right? It wasn't going to change. You learned how to use it, and you were a master of it for at least a decade, maybe more, right? But now it's constantly changing in iterations, and we have to be willing to roll with it. And so it's a different mentality. And we're going to talk about that different mentality in a moment. I'm going to share something with you. Many of us, no matter what age group we're a part of, no matter what generation or even what country we're a part of at this point, many of us were brought up with the belief that we are supposed to be domain experts, meaning we're supposed to know everything about whatever it is that we're doing within our work. And if you think back to those of you that were alive and kind of remember the 1980s, that was possible then. But here's the thing. In the 1980s, if you wanted to be a generally techie everyday person, all you had to do was be able to program your VCR and use a fax machine. Congratulations, you were techie in the 80s and that was gonna hold you for a while, right? The next thing I say to you is either gonna make you feel really good or really bad. I don't know, we're gonna see how this works. You ready? You will never be caught up again. One more time. You will never be caught up again. That feeling we had in the 80s where we mastered something and we're like, we got it? Technology and the world is changing way too fast around us for any of us to feel caught up. And so I'm willing to bet at some point in the last few months, you've said, oh, I'm getting really behind. I got to catch up on this. I don't understand this. I got to catch up. And so many of us, and in fact, when I speak to organizations, most people, like well over 95% of humans, feel like they're being left behind and they have to catch up. I want to disavow you of that notion that you need to catch up because it's an unkind goal. You cannot achieve it. And it's not okay for us to hold ourselves to goals that we cannot achieve. So we're going to do something very quick. Just do it with me. I know we're remote, but I will feel if you're doing it with me. In a moment, we're going to just take a quick breath in, and then when we breathe out, we're going to give up that notion of having to feel caught up. I'm going to give you something else to replace that with that's healthier, but we're going to give that up. Never again will we say that we have to catch up because we're feeling left behind, all right? So I want you to breathe in with me. And when I breathe out, I want you to let it go. All right. We're replacing that. We're not going to hold ourselves to that. We're not going to hold our teams to that. You can't be caught up in a world that's changing this rapidly. Because if I downloaded all the technical information that you needed for your job today, it would be outdated by tomorrow. So we're giving that up. But what we can do is adopt a personal and organizational culture of curiosity. So, something about me. I have 0 children on purpose. One more time, 0 children on purpose. And I say on purpose because occasionally when I say that, people are like, ah, and I'm like, no, I worked really hard for this, okay? So I have 0 children on purpose. However, I am one of the most active aunts you will ever meet. When I'm not on stage or interacting with incredible people like you, I have kids stuck to me all the time. My husband and I bought a bigger house. It's just 2 of us. We have a 5-bedroom house just so the kids can come and sit in there and have a good time and have their own room. So I'm with children a lot. And what I've noticed about children, when they're small, they know almost nothing, right? They just go around living life, and you kind of have to protect them because they'll accidentally just kill themselves if you're not careful, right? Like you really have to protect them. And every single day, they're being bombarded with new information, just new stuff coming at them all the time. But you know what? I have never seen a child, when presented with new information, a small child, go, that's stupid. Children don't do that. We do that. We do that because we're afraid of looking foolish, and we don't want people to know that we don't understand something, so we just poo-poo it. That's dumb. That's stupid. What do children do all day long when they're being presented with new things about how the world works or new things about their behaviors that are acceptable or unacceptable? Children say, really? Why? Why? How? Why? Why? How? Why? Why? How? They're just curious. They don't have that demand on themselves. They have to feel like they know everything and that people need to know that they know everything. They're just open. Let's see what this is. How does that work? Really? Why? And so for us to adapt and to keep moving forward in this current world that we live in, no matter what country you're joining us from, no matter what kind of organization you represent, we just have to be curious like children. That curiosity is going to make us say, oh, let's see what this revenue intelligence is when we're invited to use that technology. Or it might say, you know what? I may not have time to read all this article here, but I know this new topic's interesting. Let me just plug in a ChatGPT and ask it to explain this article to me in 5 sentences like I'm a 12-year-old and see what it says. Oh, okay, I understand now. Adopt a culture of curiosity. Now in chat, I want you all to type in, how many of you remember what it felt like to have a mind of an 8-year-old? Type in if you remember what it felt like to have a mind of an 8-year-old. You remember how it felt and how you thought, okay? So most of you don't really remember it that well. You know, life has kind of come, and for some of us, life has been great. Some of us, life has kicked us in the teeth a few times. We just keep moving, right? But we don't really have that level of innocence and wonder as a whole. I'm gonna give you a very quick activity. I'm only giving you 30 seconds to do this. And I'm gonna ask you in chat to type in what your favorite toy was when you were 8 years old. Okay, I'm only gonna give you about 20 seconds or so. Type in what your favorite toy was when you were 8 years old. All right? Give me a few seconds. Okay. Okay, someone said light bright. I see a light bright. I see a big wheel. That sounds fun. Okay. Someone said GAC. Okay. Play-Doh. I saw Play-Doh. Someone had that sit and spin. The sit and spin's even in the picture, which is a strange toy because it's like someone took one of those little clay tables and said, you know, let's stick some kids on it and let them roll around. That's a toy now. Great. Okay. I actually see a few Barbies. I see a few Barbies. Okay. My question to you, did any of you have scary pregnant Barbie? Did any of you have scary pregnant Barbie? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. So for those, many of you are like, wait, what? So for those of you that don't even remember scary pregnant Barbie, Mattel had to recall her because she was terrifying the children. Now, I want to be perfectly clear. I actually think there should be more pregnant Barbies, okay? Pregnancy is a part of everyday life. I think there should be Barbies that represent that. The problem with this particular toy was the execution. It's terrifying, right? We just got to do better. But I want you to notice, as you were typing your favorite toy into chat and remembering that, you went back to your 8-year-old self. You remembered it. Let me share something with you. There's a magical website called eBay. Do you know what lives there? Your toy. Go on there and get your toy. Get your toy. And whenever you're faced with new technology and you feel yourself starting to get stressed, or you feel yourself trying to go back to that old mode of thinking of getting caught up, I want you to rub your toy. So if you're one of the people like Steve that put in that he had a big wheel, go ahead, get that toy, put it on your desk, put it next to your desk, and rub your big wheel. And if someone comes into your office and they're like, what are you doing, Steve? Steve, you tell them, mind your own business. You're staying innovative, right? And so at the end of the day, going forward, I gave you some technology trends you should be aware of, but more importantly than anything else, I want you to embrace a culture of curiosity as we move forward into this new age of serving our clients and customers better. Thank you.
Crystal. If anyone missed your presentation, they need to watch it back immediately. It was phenomenal, so inspiring and thoughtful, and just had my mind going in a million different places. I have a lot of questions, so I'm sure that the audience has questions, and we're going to give some of those to you because you brought up so many good points. So let's see what everyone is thinking about for this Q&A. I really loved how you put the holistic psychological aspect together with the AI. You really just hear about the technology, but you never hear how the people are thinking about it. So, okay, first question for you. Could you share some examples of organizations that were able to innovate based on changes in consumer behavior?
I certainly can. There's two examples that come to mind just right immediately. One of them we kind of talked about briefly, but the other side of that blockbuster coin is Netflix. This is an organization that used to distribute DVDs via mail. And as they started seeing shifts in people using streaming more and more, they went to online services, and really they opened up an entire market. And I think the second good example of an organization that shifted was Nike. Nike, which prior to the pandemic really put their things out mostly through stores, went direct to consumer. And they really put a lot of energy into figuring out how they could do drops, how they could work with resellers, as well as how they could do more customizations on their products.
You made me feel old with the Blockbuster.
Oh,
I
do you still have the
remember
card?
my time walking through those aisles. Oh my goodness. All right, so do we have the next question? Let's see what we have here. Let's see the next one coming up, see what you guys are thinking about. She touched on so many things. All right, how could predictive AI be used to remove friction points for consumers? You did talk about those friction points.
Yes, but I love this question because it's from a different perspective. We were talking more about internal friction points. This is talking about our consumers, our clients, our nonprofit donors, right? So
let me say this question again. How could predictive AI, what is predictive AI?
So predictive AI is the AI that we were talking about earlier with revenue intelligence, right?
Okay.
So that's when you're looking at the data that you already have. Maybe you see abandoned rates on websites. Maybe you see what people have purchased in the past. Maybe you see cookies on the internet because Google, while they threatened to take away cookies, they actually decided, I think a month or so ago, that they were giving it a stay of execution or whatever. So taking all the data we have and then removing friction points for our customers or our consumers. And so one of the things we can do is we can use predictive AI for sentiment analysis. So we can see what our customers are saying about us through different websites. And because it can analyze all this data, we don't have to have Bob in the back scrolling through 1,000 different comments. It can actually say, overall, we're seeing 30% of people are saying this, 20% are saying they're having a problem here. Or if we're seeing abandon rates on our website, we might notice, oh, wait a minute, maybe we need to tweak this. So just taking the information we already have and parsing it through, and again, it's from a different perspective, not our pain points, but seeing, wait a minute, are customers having a challenge right here? How can we make this easier? A lot of organizations now are making customers sign up with an email address before they can see pricing. That might work for some consumers, but depending on your target market, some of them might abandon, the website faster. So that analytics will help you figure out, oh, maybe we should remove that. Our sales have gone down since we started implementing that.
It's too good. It's too good. All right, our next question for you, Crystal. Can you tell us more about the AI presentation builder you showed, and what was it called?
It was called Tome, T-O-M-E.
Okay.
I am not suggesting that y'all get on there and start cheating about what you know, though. I want to be very clear, but it's called Tome.
Yeah, you opened up some.
I was like, don't be naughty.
Yes. What was the other one? There was the new one from OpenAI.
Sora. So that's the video-based one. And kind of like the revenue intelligence from Mailchimp, it's in beta, so they kind of select who they let have it for now.
Yes.
But it's super interesting because the public's had access to the image creating ones, but video's kind of a game changer. And there's some other ones that are popping up too.
Yeah.
OpenAI is not the only player in town. There's many competitors.
All right, when creating AI content, how can the user guarantee that the content is copyright free?
Ooh, that is such a good question.
That's a good question.
So number one, there are AI checkers that you can use, and I don't want to recommend one. There's literally hundreds. So you can actually go ahead and Google, AI checker, see how it's rated, where it'll tell you if it finds that content is copyrighted. But the truth of the matter is, we're never going to be 100% because I said earlier, we're playing the game as the rules are being written.
Yes.
And one of the things that myself and my team of researchers found out when I was keynoting at that IP conference in Latin America is that countries right now are developing laws to encapsulate generative AI. And so there might be content that we generate today that's copyright free that they might decide a few years from now, no, you owe something to the creators who contributed to this AI being trained. So it's kind of, I don't want to scare anybody, but I want us to make informed decisions and know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's nice to have you as a guide through this because it all feels a little confusing as you're navigating it by yourself.
Well, and part of it is, if I can be honest, the people that invented generative AI, they didn't originally create it for this purpose. It wasn't actually created to be commercial.
Yep.
They created it to solve some of the biggest problems in humanity. And once they saw that corporate America and some other organizations were interested in it and willing to pay them for it, they said, oh, maybe we should sift this. So part of the confusion and a little bit of scary around it moving is that even the creators are still trying to figure out how this should be used.
Yeah, and that's when you take the breath. We're not going to know it all, right? Okay, next question. What do we have here? Are there techniques or strategies that are better suited to helping small or mid-sized businesses to stay agile and respond to changing consumer behaviors?
I love that question, yes. So we have to give up that know-it-all hat where we have to already have the answers. We want to use a test and learn strategy, test and learn. So you try new things, you get feedback from your clients and customers. You ask them open-ended questions. Many of our organizations, we send out surveys, but we'll send out a survey with maybe 5 questions, and there's acceptable answers, A, B, C, D, or E.
Yeah.
Leave some open-ended questions. Ask people, what are we not asking you that we should be asking you?
Yeah.
What do you see as our greatest challenge? What could we do better? And now that we have generative AI, again, we don't have to have Jim in the corner scrolling through all the answers. It can actually parse all of this and say, overall, the sentiment is this, or many people said this, or all the men or the people with male-sounding names said this, right? And so all we have to do is ask more questions. And if we really think about it, most of us wish that the organizations that we supported would just ask us what we want. How do we want to donate? How do we want to volunteer? How do we want to buy? We'll tell you what we need.
Right.
Just leave it open and don't always give multiple choice questions. And then you change your strategy around the answers that you get.
It's brilliant. Okay, we have another one here. How does a single person business think about using these lessons and technology?
A single person business, I would say it's a little bit different because obviously we have less skills and we have, or not less skills, but we have less people bringing their ideas to the table. But when you think about a lot of these technologies, they're tools that allow us to do more. You know, a few years ago, I spoke at a conference for administrative professionals. And these administrative professionals were hilarious because many of them had been in the business over 40 years. And they remembered when personal computers were introduced into the workplace. And I asked them, did you know people that thought that these were stupid and refused to learn? They said, yes. I asked what happened to them. They said they were ejected. Like they made themselves irrelevant. And so we think about a single person business. Think about all the things you can do with a computer now and how it extends you so much further than it would have years ago if you didn't have a computer, how much longer it takes to email things, how much longer it takes to write things out. Generative AI does that on another level. So now we have a marketing department in the arm of generative AI. We have to oversee it, but at the same time, it can extend us so that we can do more, so that we now just have to oversee it, we just have to fact check it. It allows us to have analytics so we can make as smart decisions as those larger organizations. And if I can share something, especially for these smaller businesses or one-person businesses, one of the strengths that you have is your boutique size. Because in the past, we used to think bigger was better, but now where people are saying that customer service is going down the drain and they can never get a hold of people, marketing yourself as more of a boutique operation can actually be a strategic advantage. But you're using these other tools so that you can still operate at a slightly larger level.
Understood. All right, I think we have time for one more question for you. So this person says, can you give us an example of how AI is helping automate operations for business?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, many of us have seen this in terms of our email marketing campaigns. We can set them up ahead of time, because remember, this question isn't about generative AI, it's talking about AI, period. And so we're starting to see systems where it can recommend when we need to send out emails, but we're actually setting them up far ahead of time. So we could actually, months out, have all of our campaigns set up, and we're still riding free doing other things within the organization. So that's one way it can help to automate. I'm also seeing in some businesses where they're using it in terms of scheduling for their employees as well. So it's automating the process of getting people scheduled, what routes they're supposed to run. One of the types of businesses that I speak to a lot, I don't know if people know portable sanitation, that's like portable potty people, lovely folks. They're using it a lot for route management now.
Yeah, this is an incredible conversation. I'm so happy you were the one to discuss this with us. I feel like I learned so much, and I hope that everyone that is watching learned so much. We want to thank Crystal for helping us unpack those trends and technologies to focus on. Okay, guys, this was phenomenal. But coming up next, we have our first skills builder session, and we're going to take you hands-on with Mailchimp's latest AI-powered solution. So we're continuing the conversation. So what can AI do for your marketing needs? I'm excited to find out. So we're going to head over to Alex Bravo. He's the Group Marketing Manager of Advanced GTM at Mailchimp, and Christina Stansberry. She's a Senior Marketing Manager at Mailchimp, and we're going to see what's new.